Hey y'all, welcome to the Second of Strength podcast. My name is Tanner Clark. I went from sitting at a desk to speaking on stage internationally to inspire teenagers and people like you. My goal is simple: help you find your 1 second of strength to walk away from the things that are holding you back, to step into your potential, and ultimately find happiness. Thank you for spending your valuable seconds with me today. Let's go. What is going on? Welcome to the Second of Strength podcast. Wherever you are, I am grateful you are here. As always, thank you for spending your valuable seconds with me. I know there's a lot of places you can be, a lot of things you can be doing. So I'm grateful that you trust me enough to give me just a little bit of your time. So thank you for being here. The other day, I posted on Instagram. I often do these, 3 things that teenagers are going through, 3 things to help teenagers, anything like that. But in this particular one, it was 3 things that I see teenagers struggling with. And for those who are new here, I speak to teenagers all across the country in helping them recognize and realize their potential and overcome things that they are facing in this world. And one of the things that I hear and see teenagers struggling with is the fear of failure. And while the post on Instagram was for teenagers, the things that I share are not just for teenagers. They are for anybody, and everybody's going through these things. So if you're an adult, you don't have to turn this off. This can help you. Also, if you're an adult, share this with your teenagers because it may help them. But one of the things was fear of failures, and I got a comment on that Instagram post that I don't remember who said it. Some person, who knows who it was, but they just said these are great and totally agree with them. But what are some ways to help teenagers overcome them? And in a 60-second Instagram post, it's impossible to go in depth in all the things that teenagers need or people need in general to overcome this fear of failure. But so I thought I'd dive into that today a little bit because I do think that this is a big challenge that so many people are facing today. So hopefully it helps you. But fear of failure in general, there is a term for this. It's called a tickyphobia. I don't know how many people really suffer from this. There's actually I think Penn State did a study that, between 2 and 5% of people. I think that's probably low. I think there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum of fear when it comes to, or the level of fear of failure or a tickyphobia that people have. Some people struggle on a debilitating level. Some people just on a smaller level. But I think in general, everybody has a fear of failure. The question is it holding you back? Is it limiting your potential? Is it keeping you from the great things that can happen in your life because we're too scared to try? And the fear of failure can stem from so many different places. It can come from family history. It can be a learned behavior. Maybe it's just something over time that you've started to learn or started to believe in not believe in yourself, I guess, enough to try new things. And sometimes it's from past traumas. This could be from, maybe you have received, or your kids or you yourself have received punishment for trying in the past. Everything you've done has been met with some sort of judgment or some sort of resistance. I think we see this a lot, and I have seen this before in my professional life, where maybe a boss is very judgmental or always critical of a person who is trying. They're trying their best, right? Or trying to, and then it's always trying to please that boss. But then what happens is the boss is always critical of the mistakes, and then the employee or the person tries to get things perfect or tries to always do things the right way, and then it's met with more criticism, and then it's just like this downward spiral of trouble, mental challenge until the employee finally quits, right? And so I think that's the same thing in life. If we are pushing for success, as we're trying something new, and we're always met with some sort of judgment or criticism, well, over time, we're just not going to try. We're just not going to try anymore. And so I think that happens a lot. And what happens with teenagers is their minds are so malleable, and everybody's mind is. You can always change your mind and you can adjust. That's what the beauty of our brains is. They can always adapt. But the teenage brain is forming. It's the formative years. That's what they call it, right? So so they're being just shaped and formed into these people. And so we as parents need to be super careful about the type of environment we are fostering. Are we fostering a place of growth, helping plant our teenagers in fertile soil where we're watering them, where we're encouraging, where we're helping them grow? Or are we planting them on non-fertile soil, dry land, where we're not going to help them grow, they're not going to grow, and ultimately they're ending up in this place that just is not going to be conducive or beneficial for their life. And so we as parents have to be super careful about how we are helping our kids and shaping our kids, talking to our kids, so that we can help them grow and help them learn. Because what's happening is oftentimes when we have a fear of trying new things, a fear of failure in general, we're scared of being judged. We're scared of what somebody else might say. We're scared what others will say if we don't succeed. And so we get into this place where we just don't try, and it does become a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's if we think we're going to fail, or we think we may things may not work because of the fear that we're being judged, because of the fear that we may not succeed, then it starts to just snowball into a place where we're not going to succeed, where we're not going to grow, we're not going to do the things that we need to do. So that's what's happening. Teenagers all over the world, adults all over the world, we have this fear of failure, and so instead of trying, we just don't try, because if we don't try, we can't fail. But the reality is there is more failure in not trying than there ever possibly could be in trying something, in pushing, in trying something new and growing. So that's the first thing we need to frame ourselves around, is that the fear of failure and not trying is the ultimate failure. Not trying is the failure, because you've got so much potential. You have so much that this world needs from you, because you have these gifts, these talents, these amazing things that you can give to the world. But if we're just sitting there and we're sitting back and we're too scared to try, then we can't help other people become their best selves, because we're not willing to become our best selves. So the question I was asked is, how do we teach our kids? How do we teach people in general? How do we teach them to overcome this fear of failure? And so there's a few different ways and techniques that I'll just run through that hopefully will help you. If you're a teenager, this will help you. If you are an adult, this will help you. These are simple mental exercises, things that are going to help you overcome this fear of failure. The very first is we have to build our self-esteem. And no matter what the past has happened, no matter what the past traumas, it starts with you and building this belief in yourself, in how to feel better about yourself. So the first is build self-esteem. And what I want you to do is have self-validating conversations with yourself. We want to start rewiring the brain for success in positive experiences. So instead of saying to yourself, when you've tried something, you've had something at work, something in school, and you say, man, I sucked at that. I want you to reframe that. I did great today. Or maybe it's looking back on the past week and going, man, I really was kind to that other person this week, or I acknowledge that I tried my best this week, or I didn't finish my assignment, but I made great progress. There's difference in saying, I suck, I didn't finish my assignment, or saying, I didn't finish, but I made great progress. I didn't have a perfect score on my math test, but I did pretty good. Or I did better than I thought I was going to, or I knew a lot more material than I thought I did. And so start giving yourself credit where credit is due instead of just always focusing on the negative. Because when we just focus on the negative and the failures and the things that we didn't accomplish, we end up in a place where we just constantly are talking negative of ourselves, and we just can't do this, because I always say you're the one person you get to spend every single minute of your life with. Well, isn't it better to spend those minutes with somebody that you love and that talks to yourself in a positive way? I think we've all been around people who talk negatively and are not saying kind things all the time. Well, isn't it better to be around people who are saying kind things all the time? I think so. So we want to start self-validating, even in the smallest things throughout the week. Look back on your week. Pay attention to the things that you did and give yourself credit for those things. Give yourself credit for the good that you did, even if it isn't a full success that you might define, but you can say, man, I made great progress. I did really good this week. That was a hard week, and I recognize that, but I made it through. That was a really tough day that I just had at school. Man, that was a tough emotional day, but I made it through, and I'm able to celebrate that now. So very first, way to overcome failure, the fear of failure, is have self-validating talks with yourself. The second is, let's reinforce positive outcomes from past attempts. In other words, let's reframe failures as successes, because every person has been successful in failure. You have been successful in failure. We want to focus on the things that we learned. Focus on the positive, focus on all the good that came out of it, because there is good in every failure. There is good in every attempt. There is always good that comes out of the bad, that comes out of the failures, that comes out of the losses. The question is, are we going to learn from them? Are we going to grow from them? Or are we just going to accept defeat and say that, man, I just wasn't good enough? Because you may have learned something about yourself. You may have learned a certain way that you like to do things, a certain way that you like to learn, a certain something about your habits. Even if it's a negative habit, if you learned it, then you can overcome those negative habits. You might have learned a new skill, but ultimately reframing failure as a positive gives hope that the next attempt will lead to more success and more learning. And that's what it is. This is a building block. Your life is a building block. You can't just believe that you're going to be a perfect, accomplished individual on day one, because that is just not something that happens. Everything we do is a building block. And when we take that next step and we try one more time, even if we fail, we've built on the last attempt. Let's try again. Let's try again, because all of those positive things, those skills, those learnings, those are the things that are going to set you up for success in the future, even though this attempt might have been a failure. And that's okay, because the more we do it, the more we attempt, the more we are going to put ourselves in position for success, because part of this is just opening the door to new opportunities. But if we are just focusing on the negative, focusing on the bad that happens, then we'll be closed off and stuck in attempts that just did not work, and we won't ever try again. So, number one, self-validating talks. Number two, reframe the failures as successes. One of my quotes, I've said this before, but my favorite quote is, believe and act as though it were impossible to fail. If we define success in the right way, it is always impossible to fail. It can be defined as growth. It can be defined as learning. It can be defined in other ways than just like one finite outcome. And if that outcome doesn't happen, then we are going to categorize our life and this thing and this attempt and this business venture, this school thing as a failure. And that's just not fair. We have to define success in multiple ways, multiple checkpoints. And when we do that, then we're not ever going to fail. There's always success. There's always something that we're going to learn, So the third thing, accept where you are. I think that too often we look forward at other people that we admire, other people that we are tracking, and we compare our lives to them without recognizing that they went through failure after failure after failure to get to where they are. Everybody has been on this journey, and everybody started from zero. Everybody started exactly where you are today. So what's not fair is comparing our lack of growth, lack of success to somebody else's successful life, comparing our start to their middle. That can't happen. It's just not fair to you. And so I want us to take a real look, not in a negative way, but in a positive way, of where we are today, and recognize that we are in a place of growth and curiosity and a place of trial. And when we move forward, we'll gain that experience. We will slowly gain that experience. But where we never will get to somebody else's, our view of somebody else's success, if that's what we're trying to do is grow into a certain person or a certain ability, we will never get there if we stop trying. We will never get there if we quit. So we have to keep going, even though it's scary, even though we failed in the past, even though we may not have been as successful as we would have liked. So we have to stop comparing our beginning to somebody else's middle. And that starts with simply accepting where you are today as the beginning of growth, accepting where you are today as an early stage of the future version of you, accepting where you are today as the beginning of a journey, and being willing to take that next step towards the journey, no matter what it looks like, because you may fail, and that is okay. No matter what it looks like, just take that next step and move forward. Move forward 1 inch, move forward 1 centimeter. I don't care what it is. Just be willing to move forward and accept the learning that's going to come from that, because every different thing you learn is going to point you in the direction of ultimate success. So, and the last thing is let's focus on all the positive things we've accomplished in our lives, because whether you are 5 years old, 15 years old, or 45 years old, or whatever it is, whatever age you are, you have accomplished so many things. I always talk about, when you're going through hard times, recognizing that you have made it through 100% of your bad days. The same goes for all the things that you have attempted and failed at, and that's okay. So if you have attempted something new and you have failed, which is every person in this world, then you have also come out on the other side a better person. That's you. That's you right now. And so let's focus on all of those positive things we've accomplished. Recognize that we have made it through 100% of our failures. People if we were scared that people were going to judge us, they may have, but we survived. If we were scared that people were going to doubt us or not believe in us, they may have, but we survived. If we were scared that people were going to criticize us for our failures, they might have, but we survived. You have made it through 100% of the things that you've tried, the failures that you've made, the challenges that you've faced. You've made them through all of them. And you've come out on the other side a different, better person that has set you up for success in the future. That is the power of accepting who we are, even if we're too scared, if we're feeling scared to fail, if we're feeling scared to try. So accept who you are. I just have this ultimate belief in you, in our teenagers, in humanity, that you can become anything you want to become in this world. but every single one of them is on the other side of that fear. You have to be willing to take that one step outside of your comfort zone. I believe this podcast is called the Second of Strength podcast. I believe that inside of you, you have 1 second of strength to overcome those fears in any given moment, to overcome and take that next step, to overcome and say yes to the thing that you've been too scared to say yes to. You have that deep inside of you. Just find your 1 second of strength and be willing to overcome that fear, because that is truly the difference. That is truly the difference. So wherever you're at, you're going to make it through this. Whatever you're dealing with, you're going to make it through it. That fear of failure that's been holding you back, you're going to make it through it because you've already made it through all of the other fears and all of the other things that you might fail at. You've made it through them already, and you're going to make it through these next ones. So wherever you're at, thank you for listening. If this helped you, share it on your Instagram, tag me at @RealTannerClark. Also, if you haven't left a review and a rating for the show wherever you're listening, please do so. It really helps to get this message out to more and more people, which is ultimately the goal, to help as many people as we possibly can. So, and with that, I'll leave you just how I always leave you. Go find your 1 second of strength and be happy. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope it helped you. If you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss another episode, and leave a review for the show. And as always, go find your 1 second of strength and be happy.